tastes like butter, yeah? No.
Hello and welcome, guys, joining another evening in our cybersecurity tech and AI Q&A. Trying to run this as every Tuesday we are, so guys, just drop questions, comments in a chat, and I'll try and answer all of your questions, guys. So we're just streaming live. Hello guys, hi from Greece. Good to meet you, Dimitris. We are live on YouTube, Twitch stream and TikTok, so drop your questions, guys, in the comments. Good to see you guys coming in and chatting with us about cybersecurity, technology and AI. Those of you guys joining, maybe those who you're not aware, just to introduce myself, so my name is Marius. I'm currently a CISO at FinTech business. I've been in cybersecurity for about 10 years, and maybe some of you have seen some of my videos. So I've been sharing videos just talking about what's life is like working in cybersecurity, but also sharing some ideas and goals how you can guys help and fast track your career in cybersecurity. I get loads of questions in my DMs, so hopefully some of these sessions will help you to better answer the questions, because it's so hard to give you answers, guys, in all of the questions that get in DMs. Dimitri says, are SANS cert value for knowledge? SANS are great certs, Dimitris, but SANS are extortionately expensive in my eyes. You know, SANS certs run what, $5,000 normally, and I think if you compare the knowledge that you can get from other certificates, you can get a lot better value for your money. Well, exactly as you say, $8,000. I don't think any certificate is worth $8,000. You know, I always say to people, like, even, you know, people who want to do even cybersecurity degrees, I don't think they're not necessarily worth the money all the time. You know, when I was building my cybersecurity career, I took about 8 months. I built my own sort of learning journey into cybersecurity, and I think you can do the whole training, build your labs and stuff like that. You can do that for like not even probably a couple grand, probably less than that. You know, the amount of knowledge you can gain from YouTube and things like that, and these kind of sessions where, you know, you not necessarily need to spend that ridiculous amount of money. You know, the stuff that you gain through, you know, free stuff, it's crazy. Yeah, as Scorpion says, you know, try Hack Me and Hack the Box. You know, try Hack Me costs what, $12 a month? You know, the amount of paths and learning stuff you can do in there. I prepare myself specializing in cybersecurity for maritime industry. Well, the thing is, you know, there are still, I think, 80% of any industry, there's going to be overlap in cybersecurity, Dimitri. So, maritime, you probably will specialize in some specific niche things, but loads of fundamentals will stay the same. As long as you've got networking knowledge, uh, stuff that you can learn and build the skills, you're gonna be fine. I would even also ask, obviously, why did you chose maritime? Um, you have to also think, cybersecurity career or cybersecurity sort of jobs highly vary based on where you end up. Obviously, financial services, trading, and stuff like that pay a lot more than some other industries. Look at, for example, government jobs. You got leadership, cybersecurity leadership jobs for like paying crazy low wages. I know there is obviously normally you get good pension in there, but especially for a younger person, rarely anyone looks at that part of the sort of equation. So I wouldn't necessarily block myself into one specific industry. Just build the skills and see where you end up, because um, skills are the ones that are gonna differentiate yourself. And if you're gonna build knowledge and skills, and you're gonna make yourself be a demanded resource, it's so much easier. Maritime industry is an ATM for about 15 years. Yeah, true. I mean, if you got the knowledge and you've been in the industry for 15 years, but I wouldn't necessarily box yourself in, Dimitris, to stay in maritime. Cybersecurity, open so many different opportunities and segues that you can pivot into anything where the world becomes your oyster. And I think I always talk about this. I've been in cybersecurity, as I say, for 10 years, but the amount of opportunities and the amount of things that come up, and the community is so supportive of each other that it's amazing to see how what you can achieve and what opportunities can be presented to you. Scorpion says, I will try the Cisco CCNP exam. Yeah, go for it, mate. Trying any certification is not the easy route, and exploring and gaining knowledge is good. Dimitri says the money is extremely good in Greek maritime industry. That's good to hear. It's surprising to see that certain industries, because I know one of my good friends, he's a CISO for in maritime here in UK, and we've been talking about it. I think he's highly underpaid. So it's hard in UK and maritime. But yeah, good to hear that. Velucci says, can I virtualize my entire home lab, or do I need physical hardware like switches? No, you absolutely don't, Velucci. I always say, one of my videos I think I posted yesterday was that, you can pretty much virtualize everything. Get yourself a virtual box. You can build a Kali Linux as an offensive machine. Then you build, for example, you can build Security Onion, which is a sort of defensive side Linux distro. Then you can build a Windows server in your network, or add other machines, and then you can build a network from that, and then you can explore. You can then look, you can do attacks from Kali Linux within your network on other machines, and then with Security Onion you can explore and look at how these attack scenarios look. You can explore the logs. You can learn how to push the logs into SIEM and things like that. You can do pretty much everything. Any resources you would recommend to learn from besides Try Hack Me and Hack the Box? I would say explore, Hack the Box is specifically, and Try Hack Me, they are specifically for hands-on skills. You still need to learn the theory. So, following any of the course material, such as Security Plus, learn from other content creators, look at, blogs and things like that. Building your home lab is another alternative. I think is one of the best alternatives. Home labs are amazing at, actually letting you touch things and play with things, learn how to troubleshoot. Because the biggest skill, I think, what it is, anyone can learn and pass the exam by memorization. But actually to learn how to think, how to troubleshoot, how to find what's not working, where the issues are, that's, the biggest skill. Learn how to think, analytically, because for security, normally, you always find the things that, you normally find things that, things that not going to work amazingly first time. I've got one of my videos on YouTube how to build a honeypot on AWS, and it's amazing sort of material to learn, to practice how to build a virtual machine, how to build the honeypot network. Then you can see what threat actors and hackers are using on your machine. You can see what attacks they're exploiting. You can see what passwords they're trying to do. You can see what vulnerabilities they're trying to exploit. It's amazing sort of visual dashboard. You can see in there's a map that shows where attacks are coming from. Dimitri says that just to let you know, the Hack the Box was created from Harry Pillarinos, who work in Greek Minitime. Oh, I didn't know that. It's always good to learn something new. Every day is an opportunity to learn. So yeah, good stuff. I think Try Hack Me is a great sort of platform, and Hack the Box is the same thing. It's a great platform to master your craft. Especially it's a starting journey before you build your home lab. But I think the next level is building your actual home lab, and that's where you can advance and practice those skills. And anyone just joining in, guys, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. And best way to memorize those things, best way to memorize those things, because it's quite some information you find on the internet. I think the key point is, Donny, is that the goal is not to memorize. The goal is to learn how to use that information. Because, for example, I always say in cybersecurity, you can memorize things like port numbers, but who cares? You can Google that information. It's about how to learn how to think, learn how to find the answers. That's the more thing. Memorization is not necessarily a skill. Dimitri says, I know reading for CISP, and I believe that it's great, but life is too short. Life is not too short for CISP. I've done CISP some years ago. I think CISP is, if you got experience in leadership, I think CISP is very easy. I passed the exam with breeze, and pretty much I just watched all the videos I think once and went for exam. Once you build experience, that's why the cert is only for those who've done 5 years sort of work in number of domains. So once you've been in leadership and you understand how they want you to think, CISP is very easy certificate to pass. I want to virtualize an entire corporate network, virtual switches, virtual firewalls. I'm pretty sure you can do all of that, but I would say, it's a good thing. Bellucci, it depends where you've been before. I would say start with basic, and then move towards the harder bits. To starting, straight away try to build the whole corporate network on virtualization is going to be hard, because don't forget also, if you have just a random laptop for virtualization, every single virtual machine needs about 4 gigs of RAM. Now, if you got 16 gigs of RAM, that means you can only build about 2 to 3 boxes, because you have to have some spare for the underlying virtual box operating system. So you have to have a pretty beefed up machine to be able to build the whole entire corporate network. So start simple, learn how to do the small network, and then iterate and build on top of that. Because you can, there is a road to get to the complex stuff. Don't try and complicate things too early, in that journey. But yeah, you can. I'm pretty sure if you explore, you can pretty much virtualize most of the things. I haven't played around with like virtualization of like switches and virtual firewalls, but I'm sure you can do that, because if you can virtualize the virtual machines, then you can pretty much, I'm sure you can virtualize pretty much everything. Keep firing those questions, guys. If you have any questions, have any ideas, just share with those on here, and hopefully we're trying to get people upgrade their knowledge and hopefully land a new role, or not necessarily even that. Hopefully let them gain more knowledge. Well, there you go. Vertus says you can use cloud. Fortinet allow trials of virtual appliances, etc. on limits. Yeah, well, that's another thing as well, guys, to explore. As I said, building honeypots on AWS. You can set up, I think, AWS and I'm pretty sure Google. I don't remember Azure. I'm pretty much similar. Especially those who are students, you can subscribe and build stuff in the cloud, because normally they'll give you, like, I think $300 worth of credits to explore. And if you think, like, the smallest virtual machine, it costs somewhere like, I think, $5 or $10 to run 24 hours. So you can play around quite a lot with that $300. Yeah, I would say it depends, I guess, Virtus as well. He says AWS is probably easier with Marketplace, but Azure probably more useful long term. I mean, it depends. If you still look at numbers-wise, I think AWS is still the biggest cloud. So AWS is still pretty common everywhere, around the globe. Azure Azure, I think, is better because, in a way, some organizations that use Azure, they normally tend to use most of the Microsoft security tools. So they will have Defender for Endpoint, they will have Intune, so then they'll tend to levitate towards Azure and things like that. Our agency which offer training with guaranteed job as scam, charging 3K for the course. I would be very wary of those agencies who offer training with a guaranteed job, especially, $3,000 is a lot for the course. And depends what depends what certificates and what courses and how long the course is for, because there are plenty of examples, and I talk to plenty of people who done various kind of boot camps, but they feel that they've been lied or scammed, and and as I said earlier in a chat, you can spend less than $2,000, probably $1,000, to learn quite a lot in self-learning journey. How do APT groups operate? Why are they so successful and hard to catch? Well, the first thing first is APT groups don't abide by any rules. They're not, they don't have compliance requirements. They don't have legal requirements. They are hackers. And don't forget, they spray and pray. So they can scan hundreds and thousands of networks, and they can find entry points. And also you have to remember that, hackers use social engineering as well. If you look at any bigger attacks, it's not necessarily some crazy hacking skill that got them in. You just call a help desk and pretend that you need a password change, be one of the users. And, people are always trying to be helpful. You will try and help the user. You change their password, and all of a sudden someone's got an entry into your network. They drop malware that, propagates, and if you not properly segmented your network, that's where all the problems occur. Good evening, Sir Ludwig says, would like to ask, what job would I get if I'm only good at Linux? Well, if you're only good at Linux, you'll probably need to start with help desk, because if you want to get into cybersecurity, you need to learn a lot more than just Linux. Linux is a starting point, and you probably can work in an organization that's highly working on Linux and work some kind of help desk job. That would be the start. And as I kind of put in the video today as well, help desk is still a good route because it's a good way to get internal security roles, because you will understand the organization. You can then do security jobs and tasks to build skills within the company. It's a great segue in. How do you get hired with no professional tech company name on your CV? It's hard, but you can get hired without professional tech company name on your CV. It's all about how you differentiate yourself from others. I always talk about, document your learning journey, build projects, showcase the skills that you built, not the certificates you selected, but the skills. What home labs have you built, what projects you have participated, and how you differentiated yourself from others that allowed you to build some great skills that people will find it useful. Because the thing is, the goal is not to pass certificates through memorization. The goal is to build skills to showcase how you would solve incidents, how you would solve problems that organizations face on their security. That's, I think, the way to go. Decri says, I learned more by myself creating labs and performing pen and vulnerability scan. Exactly. Well, that's the way, you learn tremendously more while doing things yourself and exploring things in a home lab, because you learn how to troubleshoot and think about these things. Yeah, no problem. Happy to help. As you guys say, I'm a really big supporter of, yes, you need some certificates, because sometimes you'll need them to pass sort of ATS and HR sort of systems, but skills and your thinking and your passion for I always say, I mentioned, I think this in last stream, I hired a lot of I'm currently Bellucci, I'm currently a CISO, so I'm a CISO. I was a security engineer previously, and if you want, guys, I can talk a bit about my career in a second, but so I'm currently a CISO, but I'm hiring people based on 2 A's. I always say it's your attitude and your aptitude. Your aptitude is your willingness to learn, and your attitude, basically your passion towards cybersecurity. I think these are the 2 things that really differentiate people. Like, I can't teach you the passion for cybersecurity. You either have it or you don't. I can teach you the technical skills afterwards. Yeah, good to hear, Rich. Yeah, it's great thing. Once you're already in IT ops, you already have the most, the tremendous basic skills that you would need to move in cybersecurity. You just need to upskill and learn a bit more, and you can move into it. But as I said earlier, guys, so I'm a CISO, so I've started my tech career 10 years ago, and I went through working in SOCs, building, architecting SOCs, then went into security engineering and security architecture, worked around DevSecOps and application security programs, did some work with pen testing, and then obviously I landed in a startup where I was a first security engineer, where I've done a lot of engineering, but then when given reins to be a CISO and build a program and security team from scratch, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years. So that's been a great journey, and a big learning curve, because going from technical to leadership is completely different thing about how you present your program to the board, how you get budget, how you make people understand what the risks company is facing, and how to help business make informed decisions about how we improve our program, what tools to buy, how to make sure we remain compliant and meet all the regulations that are required. Is completely different thing. I wouldn't necessarily say there is Bellucci, I wouldn't say necessarily there's a shortage of actual cybersec skills. Well, I think in a way probably there is. I think the one thing which I think a lot of people struggle to realize is there has been, whether it's by marketing, whether it's by training companies, there's been a nice picture painted that you do a couple of certs and you land this lucrative cybersecurity job. But that's not the case. I think there's a lot of people who've been lured into cybersecurity by this high salary and low entry level, because everyone's saying that there's millions of skills shortages. I don't think that's necessarily the case. There's plenty of people who are still out of work. But I think the key point is people need to realize that just getting a couple of certs will not land you a couple of 100K job. You really need to be passionate about cybersecurity, and it's an industry where you have to continuously learn and evolve, because technology and everything in cybersecurity moves very, very quick and rapidly. So you need to be able to continuously learn, continuously adapt, continuously evolve, and build more skills. But I think, as I say, the biggest misconception is certs versus skill building. You need to build skills, you need to gain knowledge, and you need to understand how to think, how to analyze, how to troubleshoot the common company problems that they have. That's where the real gift, where your career really escalates. And then, you keep building on that and keep continuously progressing, because, for example, take 5 years ago, cloud was pretty new. Now everyone's in the cloud. So, all of a sudden cloud is a knowledge, but now we got AI around the corner. So now those security professionals who learn AI security and how to secure AI and how to use AI for security are the ones who definitely gonna take the career to the next level. And these things are continuously changing, and organizations now are going to look for people who are, if your organization is moving towards AI, you want a security engineer, security professional who understands AI. Now, if you do not study and learn and keep up with that, all of a sudden, you get left behind. That's where, the real skills are in this, world of AI and security. But yeah, continue, guys. Just drop questions in the chat. Any comments, anything you would like to know. Bellucci says, how are APT groups using AI for their operations? Do they use agents for automated attacks? I think the one thing we are continuously seeing now, hackers are, they do a lot of phishing attacks. So all of a sudden their phishing emails and phishing campaigns became more sophisticated, because they can build those emails using and analyzing various defense mechanisms and find ways to bypass our defenses. The emails are becoming more convincing and harder to stop by our security tooling. That's where the real AI comes. I think agents and sort of MCP frameworks, that's probably in the future, where you can probably, build sort of networks where you can automate attacks and just leave it to AI to run overnight. But, things like, I mentioned earlier about honeypots. So honeypots are defensive sort of open networks that we gather intelligence, but threat actors have reverse sort of honeypots that scan the network continuously to find, open ports, exposed old vulnerabilities and things like that. They gather that information and then probably do research on specific, companies where they have these vulnerabilities and where they can exploit them. That's been out there even before AI. That's been running for, years and years. Yeah, keep dropping your questions, guys. There's no stupid questions in the chat. I'm trying to help and answer all of your questions, and help you in any way you can, guys. So it's always good to see, that we have quite a few people in the chat. So what was your first successful project, and how did you felt after it was successful? So my first project, what I did, Smanga, was I built, I had an old laptop, and I just powered it and ran VirtualBox on it. So I built Kali Linux, and I think I had a Windows server. And then I just was learning various tools within Kali Linux, how to scan the network, how to find open ports on that Windows server. It was amazing, experience, because, all of the configurations that you needed to connect the machines in a network, to understand how to use various tools to attack. But then on the flip side as well, I was able to learn to turn on the logging on the server and look how attacks happen from one side of view, obviously from attacking point of view, but also from defensive point of view. So, then you can, run things like Wireshark and intercept traffic and understand how traffic from sort of networking point of view looks like, how attacks look like. I was at the same time I was playing with Hack the Box and Try Hack Me. So all of these things I was, kind of stacking skills one on top of each other, which was, an amazing experience, because whenever you start this thing, it looks like an impossible task, and it looks, cybersecurity always looks like a vast ocean that you can never get to the bottom, and that could be humbling in the beginning and very hard. But I think you need to understand that you can never learn everything all at once, and you're never going to be an expert in everything. It's just understanding that as long as you do the best you can and you continuously persevere, learn, and the one thing that really helped me as well is that you guys need to you need to be part of communities and like-minded people where you can help each other to find answers, help to sometimes you stumble upon a problem where you think that's an impossible problem for me to solve. And being in a community, whether it's Slack, whether it's Discord, whether it's LinkedIn or anywhere else, or these kind of chats where you come and chat to people and work through a common problems, are amazing sort of way. And that's why early in my career I started using LinkedIn from pretty much day one when I was learning, and I was posting not only what I was learning but also asking questions and getting to chat with people who had more experience, who helped me along the way. It's always been a tremendous, because not only I was learning from more experienced people, but I was also sharing what I was learning to help the people who are coming up behind me. So we kind of, as a community, push each other forward to help each other and upskill each other and push each other forward. And I think that's the tremendous sort of power of this cybersecurity industry and community, that so many people are willing to offer their time, to offer their help, to offer their time. I went on calls with people who I talked through my ideas, what certificates I wanted to do, how I wanted to build my career, and the tremendous thing was that not necessarily people were not necessarily just pointing me in the direction, but they were challenging my thinking and allowed me to think about what's the best for me, instead of I always say you have to take every single advice you have to take with a pinch of salt. You still have to figure out what's best for you. I only can give you an advice, an idea from my perspective, but I never know what's best for you. I can only think and say what, from my experience, I think is best. But you guys have to weigh up whether this specific certificate or this specific skill is the best for you. Because I always say, for example, I get a lot of messages where people say, how do I enter cybersecurity? And I always say, guys, I can't help you, because you need to understand what you want first within cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is vast. Do you want to be a SOC analyst? Do you want to be governance, risk and compliance person? Do you want to go into pen testing? Do you want to go into engineering? Every single role will demand a different path, a different skill, a different outset, and you have to think about what is the best supplementation for the skills that you currently have. It depends what career you've done, depends what skills you have, and depends how you operate. Are you an analytical thinker? Do you prefer documentation and policies and things like that? All of these will determine the path that you take and where do you go from there, guys. So I want you guys to do the work first, after you it's hard to help someone when the expectation is for me just to give you the whole path and prescribe every single detail. You have to, guys, do the work. You have to do the digging, you have to do the understanding and figure it out what will be the best in your journey. I'm just there to nudge you and challenge you and hopefully give you a bit of guidance of what's the best direction from my experience. But yeah, guys, keep sending messages. If you got any questions, as I said before, there's no stupid questions. I'll try and help and answer any tech. It doesn't have to be cybersecurity. I've been around industry and technology, and now I'm kind of playing with AI. So drop any questions that you might guys have, or any comments, or any other ideas that I can help and answer you guys, and hopefully we can help the community and each other. Would you think is the reason corporations are cutting back on cybersec funding? Oh, that's a very good question, Belucci. I think the problem is that I think regulation and law is not strict enough. There's many organizations who are underfunded their cyber budgets. They got breached and actually got little fines to show for it. So I think some organizations are thinking, well, we can get away with it. Or they're buying cybersecurity insurance and think, well, worse comes worse. Insurance will pay for it. So I think there is that kind of thinking that people think they can get away with things. And the problem is, and the examples show it, because, all of the recent big breaches, what was the one the other day I saw where a company, I think, got their fine reduced from like 50 million to like $40 million. Now, if that's the view from regulations where they're cutting the fines, they're not really punishing people for not doing enough, well, there's a kind of sign for organizations to say that maybe we don't need to spend enough, or maybe we can just outsource cybersecurity function to, a third company, or we can just underfund it, use cyber insurance for the worst case scenario. And yeah, as you say, that's definitely unfortunate thinking. And, this kind of comes in waves. In UK, for example, what happened to Marks and Spencer's, the Co-op and stuff like that, kind of focused the minds of some of the organizations, and they definitely has been sort of an uptick in hiring and sort of thinking about what's best. But the flip side, it's, I think because of the recent downturn, I see a lot also organizations where they try and hire people, have a crazy expectation to the job spec. They want to hire a CISO who's a hands-on, who can do a job of 10 people for the price of half a person. So there's a lot of that as well. Someone says, hello bro, how are you doing? I'm good. I've got a bit of problem with my eye, but we are surviving, we're busy. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of things, I think it's nice to see quite a lot of people getting to chat and asking some great questions. After choosing my area, can you help with where to do the training? I can definitely guide you. You just, once you figure out what the role you want to do is, then it's figuring out, how you stack and build those skills, whether it's certification, whether it's, building home labs. I can certainly point you in the right direction. But again, the world is your oyster. You got the information at your fingertips in the internet, in the YouTube. I can certainly, try and help you as much as I can. And that's why, I have these sessions to hopefully answer some of those questions, guys, that you might have, and if you get stuck in what direction to take and how to progress in your cybersecurity journey, certainly. But as I say, you have to figure out and know what is the best role and where do you want to go, because entering cybersecurity is not necessarily an answer that is easy to provide to you guys. How do you approach continuous learning and professional development? Well, I kind of mix things up. So it's between sort of YouTube. I've done probably 40 certificates in my life, so I kind of don't really do certifications anymore. But I like to play with things. So, for example, talking about AI. So I built my own and trained my own AI models to learn how AI works, how AI training works, and how to secure AI. I read a lot of books. So now, because I'm in leadership, I don't read probably that many technical books, but I read a lot about leadership, about influencing, storytelling, negotiating, and things like that. I'm reading a lot about business and how businesses operate, how I can, help convince leadership that why this cybersecurity program that I'm building is the best solution to solve our problems and things like that. Okay, Ginta says, what are your thoughts about SOC analyst as an entry-level job? It's definitely a good route in, because I've always been talking about this. SOC analyst competition is high, but also you have to think, when you look at the numbers, go on LinkedIn now, look at entry-level cybersecurity roles. Out of 100, probably 95 of them will be SOC analyst. Now, at the same time, yes, the competition is high, but every role has high competition. But looking at numbers game, you want to probably be in a pool where there's more roles to participate with than look at somewhere like entry-level pen testing. Entry-level pen testing roles are pretty much non-existent. You're going to find them very far in between. So if there's more roles, that means there's more opportunities to gain a SOC analyst role. The only problem I think nowadays is that MSSPs and companies like that are replacing some of the entry-level SOC analysts with AI. So again, that market is changing. So you probably need a bit more skills and a bit more knowledge to actually land those roles, and you need to differentiate how the skills and how thinking and how you can, you know, be able to stack skills and gain the knowledge and be, you know, articulate to solve the incidents. Would try hack me SOC 1 would be enough to practice? I wouldn't say it's enough, but it's definitely one of the platforms to use. You know, you got what's the other ones? There's like Cyber Ranges. There's a number of them, but I would also highly recommend just, you know, get a couple of $100 laptop and build your own home lab. Home labs are an amazing place to showcase the skills and showcase how you what qualities makes a good cybersecurity leader. I think cybersecurity leadership is very, very different landscape from your any technical sort of role. Hi guys. Leadership, I think, it's all about how you manage people. I think the first and foremost, you need to be a good leader for your team and go by example and let your team flourish and showcase their abilities and skills. You hire them for their skills, so don't micromanage them. Let them do their thing and open the doors for them. But you need to be a good sort of understand how business operates, how business makes revenue, and how you can protect that revenue, and how you help business flourish. You need to be a good person who understands risk and how to manage risk and how to help business make informed decisions about risk management. You need to also be the kind of person who can influence leadership and business people about making informed decisions about cybersecurity. You need to there's a lot of skills I think that goes into cybersecurity leadership, and I think the qualities are, you know, the leadership, leading by example, integrity, good manager of people, influencing, communication skills. I think empathy is an important skill to be had, and things like that. That's all comes, I think, together as a package, you know, and all of these you kind of, you know, I had to learn very quickly and stack once I got into leadership. You know, there's tremendous reading, and you know, and I think that, you know, for me, the learning never stops, and you know, you want to keep journey, you know, keep reading. That's, for example, one of the latest books I've just finished reading, How to Buy Back Your Time, and it's an amazing book about, you know, some great hacks about how to unclaim your freedom. But it's all about entrepreneurship. But you know, I also, aside from CISO, I run my cybersecurity consultancy business, so I'm going to use a lot of lessons from here, how I scale my virtual CISO practice and get more clients. So, you know, to me, I think learning never stops. Can you get in legal trouble if corp you are protecting gets breached? It depends. I think there are worrying signs that this is potentially happening in US. The thing is, you have your ways to protect yourself. I think nowadays most CISOs getting liability insurance to move away them from any liability. But I think secondly is, if you remember in the news what happened to Uber CISO that got sued and stuff like that. Now, you have to protect your own integrity. He was asked, I think, by CEO and leadership to cover things up, and he paid basically, I think, a ransomware payment and covered it in expenses. So as long as you know, make sure get things in right. I always say, for example, whenever I establish a cybersecurity program, I build something called the Cybersecurity Charter, which sets out leadership responsibilities. Because I always say, CEO is responsible for is accountable for cybersecurity, but I'm responsible to build the program. But they have to provide me with funds to make sure that my program is successful. So whenever there is, for example, a risk that's business is willing to accept, you have to make sure that it is documented. If they don't want to deploy, for example, antivirus, you have to get CEO to say that I don't want to deploy antivirus and sign it off. So if the breach happens because we don't have antivirus, it's not my fault. Business accepted the risk. So as long as you document all of those things, liability should never sit with the CISO. Because we are there, we're not the ones who are making the final decision. We are helping the CEO and the business to make informed decisions. So we are there to explain them what decisions are the best to be made, but they are ultimately the final decision maker who gets to spend the money in cybersecurity programs. So the liability, most likely, if you do your own job properly, it's not going to sit with you ever. But yeah, guys, last few minutes, if you got any final questions, I try to keep these to within 45 minutes. Marius, someone says, Marius, hire me, I'll implement SailPoint for your org. I wish I could, but we're not in a position to use things like SailPoint. I never used SailPoint. I don't even know what SailPoint is. I'm sure I heard the name float about, but I don't know what really. Secure access to critical data and applications. We don't really have a necessity currently for SailPoint. I wish I could. So I'm gonna actually create. I'm starting now creating events, Vellucci. So actually, first today, the first one event created, but tomorrow I'm gonna publish another event. So I'll try to do these lives every Tuesday at 6 p.m. UK time or British time. So I'm gonna create a schedule. And you'll see I'll drop a video tomorrow and link again to register for the next live session to make sure that, guys, you turn on your notifications, so when I'm going to live next, you'll get the message. So, but I'm gonna run every Tuesday live session, similar sort of chat, questions, especially, guys, if you are on your journey, you can go and check in, what you added skills, what things you have learned, and hopefully we can help you to go to the next step. So every Tuesday, 6 p.m. at British Standard Time or UK time, these lives going to be happening. But it was amazing to chat with you guys. I'm going to leave you with this. So hopefully, guys, to see you again next week. Have an amazing evening, guys. Keep stacking, working hard, and building those skills on your journey into cybersecurity. And I'm not necessarily have time for mentoring aid, but hopefully, what I'm talking here, come back next Tuesday, and I'll hopefully answer some of those more questions, in the next lives, and hopefully help you in your journey. The last one, what inspired you to pursue a career in cybersecurity? I was always into technology. So I was, during university, I was studying motorsport engineering, and I was doing physical security actually to get through uni. But I understood that in physical security, especially in UK, it was impossible to build a career because every single leadership position was basically army buddies, and I never went into army, so I knew it was impossible for me to land a sort of leadership position in physical security. So I wanted to think how I can combine my passion for technology with the skills in security, and where should I go next. And cybersecurity was a sort of a clear direction, and as soon as I started, I never looked back. In the last 10 years, I never stopped studying and learning, and I think it was it was the best decision I've made in my life. Because I always say, somebody said to me some years ago, when you find the work that you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. And it's never been a Sunday morning where I'm dreading for the Monday ahead because I think, oh no, I have to go to work. Every single day has been tremendous working and learning and adapting and keep stacking skills. Jenki, I'm about to finish in 1 minute, so ping me or come. I'm gonna create a schedule. I'm gonna do these lives every Tuesday at 6 p.m. So hopefully, guys, I'll see you next Tuesday. Have an amazing evening. keep grinding, keep learning, and keep building those skills. And I'm sure, guys, most of you are going to be successful. I think last week someone already landed a role based on some of the videos that I posted. So if you haven't followed me, follow me to see some of the videos that I post daily. And I'll see you on the next live next Tuesday. Have an amazing evening, guys. See you later.